Jackie Wilson was a music legend, but behind the fame was a story of pain, secrets, and mystery. His life and passing still leave questions that fans can't forget. The collapse, the cover-ups, and the last words. Jackie Wilson's last years read like a music story turned crime mystery. A bootleg recording, said to be from his last full concert just days before his collapse, may hold the final notes he ever sang, and even his last words. On that tape, the medley around Lonely Teardrops shows he still had full control of his voice. His version of Doggin' Around sounds almost unreal, and the few lines of My Way carry a tone so sweet it feels like a personal goodbye. In September of 1975, Jackie was on stage at the Latin Casino. He took salt tablets, drank large glasses of water, and began his act. After performing Lonely Teardrops, he fell forward onto the stage. At first, the crowd thought it was part of the act. Dick Clark quickly saw it was not. Singer Cornell Gunter rushed over and tried to help. Paramedics took Jackie to the hospital. Doctors guessed it might have been a heart attack or stroke. His fall had also caused his head to hit heavy stage gear, which may have worsened his condition. From there, the mystery deepened. Jackie lived about 8 more years, but in a state many call a living lifeless. He had severe brain damage, could not speak, and could not walk. He was moved between care homes and nursing facilities. Reports described neglect in some places. When family or friends noticed slight signs of recovery, court-appointed guardians sometimes stopped therapy that could have helped. Some people tried to help him. Joyce McRae, later Joyce Moore, fought to improve Jackie's situation. According to the reports, she and others were stopped by a group with the money and power to use New Jersey courts to block changes to his care. The reports claims Harleen Harris was legally set up as Jackie's wife and later his widow, while Jackie's actual wife at the time, Lynn Crochet, and even Joyce were barred from visiting him. This control also gave those in charge power over his estate and who could see him. There are questions about Harleen Harris's true age and motives. The sources suggests that she may have been older than she claimed. Although this is speculation, it also claims she had powerful backers paying her legal costs, and that staying in the public eye may have been part of her interest in being named Jackie's wife. Money problems were already following Jackie before he collapsed. He owed recoupments to his record label and a large tax debt to the Internal Revenue Service. The reports also asks why people would fight so hard for control of an estate that seemed to have little cash. The answer it offers is that the power to control information about Jackie's finances was itself valuable. That ties to accusations about his managers, record executives, and the wider music business at the time. One of the biggest claims is that Jackie may have been asked to testify before a grand jury about Brunswick Records and odd industry practices. Rumors also claimed that he might have agreed to testify in return for help with his tax debt. If true, this could explain a rumor that his possible testimony worried powerful people in the business. Years earlier, Jackie had already survived mistreatment. On one Valentine's Day, he was shot twice outside his New York apartment by Juanita Jones. Police listed her as 28 years old. Reports also suggest she might have been aiming for Harleen instead. Jackie claimed he jumped on her to stop her from shooting. Surgeons saved his life, but he lost one kidney and a bullet stayed lodged near his spine. His manager, Nat Tarnopol, told the public it was the act of an obsessed fan, which the rumors say was to protect Jackie's image. Fellow musicians tried to help with his medical bills. Bobby Womack organized a benefit at the Hollywood Palladium, raising much-needed funds. The money helped with costs, but did not end the battle over his care. In 1976, Jackie showed brief signs of recovery, even standing and taking shaky steps, but he soon slipped back into a semi-comatose state. At the time of his collapse, Jackie saw Lynn Crochet as his wife. Harleen, however, had never completed her divorce, leaving a legal gap that was used to make her Jackie's official wife and later his widow. That title gave her control over visits and estate decisions. Other reports also point to record label executives, including Nat Tarnopol and others tied to Brunswick. It accuses them of illegal cutout sales that robbed artists of royalties. Some of these people feared indictments and had reasons to worry about what Jackie might say in court. These claims, while serious, are reported as part of the background to the legal and medical struggles Jackie faced in his final years. Jackie's last known words on the bootleg tape still chill his fans. He told the crowd he hoped to be back soon, then added, "Whatever goes up has a tendency, most time, to come down. What goes around eventually comes around." He spoke about people choosing right or wrong and said, "Think about me, and I'll be damned if I won't think about you." Before singing My Way, he softly said, "I love you." To many, it feels like he knew it was goodbye. Let's take a look at the tough struggles he had to go through. Collapse, struggle, and the long goodbye. Jackie Wilson's life took a sharp and painful turn on September 29th, 1975. That night, he was performing at a Dick Clark benefit concert in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. The room was filled with people who had come to enjoy the music and support a good cause. Jackie began singing one of his biggest hits, Lonely Teardrops, a song that had once made crowds scream with joy. But before he could finish the first verse, he suddenly collapsed on stage. Many in the audience thought it was part of the act. Jackie had been known for dramatic moves and physical performances, but this time, it was real. He had suffered a massive heart attack. At first, no one moved, but soon the seriousness became clear. Paramedics rushed to help, and Jackie was taken to a local hospital. Although his heart started beating again, his brain had been without oxygen for too long. This caused severe brain damage, leaving him in a coma. The vibrant, energetic man who had once danced and sung across stages around the world was now lying still, unable to speak or move. For the first few months, there was hope. Friends, fans, and even other musicians prayed for a recovery. Doctors tried everything, but his condition did not improve much. He came out of the coma into a semi-conscious state, sometimes opening his eyes but unable to communicate clearly. Over time, it became clear that Jackie would never return to the stage or live a normal life. The years that followed were full of quiet battles. Jackie was moved from one care facility to another as his medical needs changed. One of the places he stayed was the Medford Lease nursing home in New Jersey. His family visited when they could, but the visits were bittersweet. He could not join the conversations, and it was unclear how much he understood. The man who had once been the center of every room now lived mostly in silence. Money quickly became a problem. Jackie had earned millions during his career, but bad business deals, mismanagement, and possibly exploitation had drained much of it. At the time of his collapse, he was already facing financial troubles. Long-term medical care is expensive, and without a steady income, paying for it became difficult. Rumors spread that he was nearly broke, and sadly, many of them were true. Some friends in the music industry tried to help with bills, but there was no big fund or steady support system in place. In the public eye, Jackie's story faded. In the music world, the late 70s and early 80s brought new stars and new sounds. Younger fans didn't know much about him, and older ones had no new performances to keep his name in the headlines. While other artists of his generation were still touring or appearing on television, Jackie's life was being lived out quietly in a care home, far away from the spotlight. This long decline deeply hurt those who had known him. Fellow performers often spoke about how unfair it was that a man who had given so much joy to the world was spending his final years this way. Some even blamed the industry, saying that the business he helped build had failed to protect him when he needed it most. Behind the scenes, there were also tensions among people close to him over how his care was handled and where the money should go. Jackie's health slowly worsened over the years. He faced multiple complications, including infections and pneumonia. These are common risks for patients who are bedridden for a long time, and each illness took more of his strength. Still, he held on for over 8 years after his collapse. Far longer than many expected. His endurance amazed doctors, but it also meant more years of struggle. In January 1984, Jackie was moved to the Memorial Hospital of Burlington County in Mount Holly, New Jersey. By then, it was clear the end was near. On January 21st, he passed away at the age of 49. The official cause was complications from pneumonia. When the news broke, it brought back memories of the man he had once been. A brilliant showman, a voice full of power and emotion, and a performer who had inspired so many. Tributes came from all over the music world. Some stars mentioned how his style had influenced them. Others expressed regret that more had not been done to help him in those difficult years. His funeral was both a celebration of his music and a reminder of how quickly life can change. Friends, family, and fans gathered to say goodbye. For many, it was the first time they had thought deeply about his story in years. The sadness was not just about his passing, but about the way his life had ended, so far from the bright lights and loud applause he had once known. Even after his passing, questions lingered. Some wondered if better medical attention right after his collapse could have changed things. Others pointed to the way the music industry handled its artists, often profiting from their talent without providing real support when times got hard. There were also discussions about how his finances had been managed and who had benefited from his work in those last years. Jackie Wilson's long struggle after his heart attack was more than just a personal tragedy. It became a symbol of the vulnerability of performers. One night, you can be on stage singing your biggest hit. The next, you can be fighting for your life, with no safety net to catch you. His story would later inspire both tributes and cautionary tales. For younger artists, it was a reminder to protect their health and their earnings. For fans, it was a lesson about loyalty, that the people who bring you joy on stage are still human beings who need care and respect when the lights go out. Jackie's passing closed a painful chapter, but it also began a new one. Questions about justice, protection, and the real cost of fame. These questions still hang over his legacy, and they shape how people talk about him even today. With his passing came a new set of issues. Let's move straight into the details. The silent struggles after his passing. Jackie's passing closed a painful chapter, but it also began a new one. Questions about justice, protection, and the real cost of fame. These questions still hang over his legacy, and they shape how people talk about him even today, making his life more of a mystery. In the years after his passing, fans expected that the truth about his health, finances, and treatment would come out. But instead, silence and confusion surrounded his story. Many believed he had earned millions during his career, yet reports claimed his estate had very little money left. For someone whose voice had filled stadiums and sold countless records, this was a shock. Friends and fellow performers started to speak quietly about the way Jackie's career was handled. Some suggested that people close to him had taken advantage of his trust. Others said that his contracts were unfair from the start and that he had little control over his own earnings. While nothing was fully proven, these whispers painted a picture of a man who gave his life to music but received little protection in return. His health struggles added another layer to the mystery. Jackie had suffered a major heart attack on stage in 1975, as said earlier, collapsing mid-performance. He was only 41 years old at the time. The incident left him in a coma for months and caused permanent brain damage. For the next 8 years until his passing, he was unable to return to his former life or career. What happened during those years remains a sensitive subject. Reports say his medical care was basic, and he spent much of his time in nursing facilities. Visitors said he seemed aware at times, but could not speak or move normally. For fans who remembered his energy and charisma, this was heartbreaking. Financial questions also grew during this period. Hospital bills were high, and without steady income from performances, his estate relied on royalties. But even these seemed to vanish quickly. It was unclear who was managing his money or whether they were acting in his best interest. The lack of clear records made it nearly impossible to know the full truth. Jackie's family tried to step in, but there were disagreements about who should be in charge of his care and finances. Some relatives accused others of misusing funds, while others argued that outside managers were the real problem. This conflict created more tension and prevented a united effort to secure justice for Jackie. The public only saw bits and pieces of the story through news reports. Most of the time, updates were short and vague, leaving room for rumors. Fans were left to guess whether Jackie was being treated with dignity or forgotten by the very industry he helped shape. Even after his passing in 1984, the confusion did not end. Legal disputes over his estate lasted for years. Some lawsuits involved unpaid royalties, while others focused on control of his image and music rights. These battles kept his name in the headlines, but they also kept the wounds open for his family and fans. To many, it seemed that Jackie had been a victim not only of health problems, but also of a system that failed to protect him. He had worked tirelessly for decades, yet in the end, his legacy was clouded by unanswered questions. People wondered why a man so talented and influential had been left vulnerable at his weakest moment. This part of his story also raised larger questions about how the music industry treated its stars, especially black performers during Jackie's era. Many faced similar struggles with unfair contracts, lack of financial guidance, and exploitation. Jackie's case became an example of how fame could hide deep problems rather than solve them. The silence around these issues made them even more painful. Without clear answers, theories multiplied. Some believed the truth was intentionally hidden to protect certain reputations. Others thought it was simply the result of poor record-keeping and mismanagement. Either way, the damage to Jackie's life and career was permanent. By the time the legal matters began to settle, years had passed, and a new generation of music fans only knew Jackie through his recordings. While his songs remained timeless, the man behind them seemed locked in a tragic story that no one could fully explain. This quiet struggle after his passing showed a side of fame that is rarely discussed. Behind the lights and praises, there can be loneliness and a lack of safety nets for artists who give everything to their craft. Jackie's story stands as a warning about what can happen when those safety nets are missing. But the story did not end there. In later years, new details began to surface, and they painted an even more troubling picture, one that would change how many people saw Jackie's final chapter. Truths that came too late. In later years, new details began to surface, and they painted an even more troubling picture, one that would change how many people saw Jackie's final chapter. These details did not come from rumors alone. Some were shared by people who had been close to him, others from those who had studied his life for years. Together, they revealed a truth that was far more complicated than the public had been told. One of the most shocking revelations was how little protection Jackie had in the final years of his career. Behind the spotlight, he faced a mix of bad contracts, unfair business deals, and people who were more interested in profit than in his health or safety. In a time when many artists struggled for control over their own work, Jackie's situation was even worse. By the time he collapsed on stage, he had already been drained by years of poor management and legal troubles. Another point that came to light was how poorly his medical needs were handled after his collapse. Stories from insiders suggested that he did not always receive the best care available. Some believed his condition could have been better managed if certain decisions had been made sooner. These claims, while hard to prove completely, only added to the anger and sadness felt by his fans. They raised the question of whether more could have been done to help him live longer, or at least more comfortably. There were also accounts about the people who controlled his finances. It was said that large sums of money from his work went missing or were never given to him. Even while he lay unable to perform, his name and music were still being used to earn profits that did not always reach his family. This left a bitter feeling among those who knew him, as it meant that Jackie's talent continued to make money for others while he was left in a vulnerable state. The release of these details years later forced many to look again at his legacy. Jackie Wilson was not just a story of talent and charm, he was also an example of how the music industry could fail even its brightest stars. Fame had given him opportunities, but it had also made him a target for exploitation. In the end, those who should have stood by him often stepped back, leaving him exposed to harm. For fans, these truths were difficult to accept. Many had grown up with his music, holding on to the joy it brought them. To learn that behind the voice they loved, there was a man fighting battles he could not win was heartbreaking. Yet it also gave his legacy a new kind of meaning. He was not only a singer, but also a reminder of the importance of protecting artists, something that still applies today. Jackie Wilson's story is now told with both admiration and warning. His talent changed music forever, but his struggles showed how easily an artist's life can be controlled by forces outside their control. The final years of his life may have been filled with hardship, but they also inspired a push for change, encouraging younger artists to demand better treatment. His mystery, once hidden behind closed doors, is no longer a mystery at all. It is a warning that fame without protection can be dangerous, and that talent alone is never enough to guarantee safety or respect. Jackie's voice still plays on radios and films, and on stage through others who sing his songs. But for those who know the full story, that voice now carries both beauty and a reminder of the cost he paid. Jackie Wilson will always be remembered as one of the greats, but the truth behind his final years ensures he is also remembered as a man who deserved far more than what he got. Jackie Wilson's passing still stirs suspicion. His health struggles were undeniable, but some believe figures like Brunswick Records' Nat Tarnopol, whom Jackie had legal battles with over money, knew more than they revealed. Jackie had fought for control of his earnings, accusing Tarnopol and others in his circle of exploiting him. These disputes were bitter, involving lawsuits and claims of millions in missing royalties. Some wonder if the stress and betrayal from such conflicts worsened his decline, or if his downfall served the interests of those holding his contracts. Decades later, the mystery endures, leaving questions over who truly benefited from his silence, or who might have influenced his passing. Jackie Wilson's story is one of breathtaking talent and heartbreaking loss. His voice could lift a crowd to its feet, and his stage presence set a standard few could match. But behind the applause was a man who faced betrayal, neglect, and tragedy. The unanswered questions about his treatment, his finances, and his final years have never fully faded. Even so, Jackie's music continues to inspire. Songs like Lonely Teardrops, Higher and Higher, and To Be Loved still echo across generations. Many of today's biggest artists credit him as a pioneer who blended soul, R&B, and pop into something fresh and unforgettable. His powerful performances helped shape the very idea of the modern entertainer. Though his end was marked by pain and mystery, Jackie's legacy is not one of defeat. It is one of resilience, artistry, and influence. Fans remember not just the questions, but the joy he brought with every note. In the end, the mystery may remain, but so does the music, a reminder that while fame fades, true talent lives on. Jackie Wilson's voice is still climbing higher and higher, and that is how history will remember him.